Good day, everyone. This is Jackson Green again. For this discussion board, I decided to focus on Charles Augustus because we watched God in America for class last week, and his story kind of interested me to see how it actually played out and how PBS picked and chose some aspects of it. Charles Augustus Briggs was born in 1841 in New York and studied at the University of Virginia. He graduated there with his bachelor's in 1860. Now, those dates are probably pretty familiar to us, that last one especially, because within a few short months, the Civil War broke out. For the most part, for the first 2 years of the war, he was actually at Union Theological Seminary in New York, training to be a Presbyterian minister. And after the war ended, he moved to Berlin in 1866 to study at the University of Berlin. And it was there that he kind of got the information about historical and textual criticism that would end up shaping the major event of his life, which happens a few decades later. He is ordained by the Presbyterian Church and placed in at Roselle, I believe I'm saying that right, New Jersey, where he stays from 1870 to 1874. But in 1874, he's brought on actually to be a faculty member for Union Theological, and within he is the chair of the Hebrew department for UTS at the time. By 1891, the idea of biblical theology, which has started to supplant the idea of systematic theology, which was pretty well put down by Charles Hodge a couple decades prior. He becomes the first chair of biblical theology at Union Theological. In 1891, his acceptance address is his first lecture, his inaugural lecture, which was entitled The Authority of Holy Scripture, which is what really set off everything in his life down what one could say is probably a bad path. He's charged with heresy because of the things he says in it. He was willing to put every part of Scripture under scrutiny, including that of even divine inspiration. Briggs, in that inaugural lecture, questioned where biblical authority actually came from and stated that church and reason were just as important as claiming divine authority. He maintained that it was not the authority of Scripture that he was attacking, but rather the bibliolatry, kind of an idolatry of the Bible, that he felt some people had gathered over the centuries. Namely, of course, his main rival in this would be Charles Hodge. Historian Ira Brown actually calls his case the, quote, the most notorious event of the 19th century American church history. Of course, is coming at it from the idea of this is one of those sort of Pyrrhic victories, if we look at where Union Theological Seminary stands today in its adherence to biblical authority. After his heresy trial completes in 1893, he continued to be a constant factor for the progressive Reformed modernist theories. 6 years after his trial went bad, he became an Episcopal due to their more ready acceptance of textual criticism and their stance on Christian unity, which is actually what some historians like Mark Massa have claimed is the more important part of his life. He had already begun to work prior to the workings of his trial in the direction of Christian unity for an attempt to return to a single holy church by claiming science of history demands it. In 1890, he even stated to the Church Unity Society that unity is even more important than theology. In the early 20th century, after joining Episcopalianism, he got involved with a Catholic controversy to try and unite Catholic theology with modern science such as Darwinism. When he finally passed in 1913, He was remembered in an article by Henry Smith for being fearless in proclaiming the truth and patient in his research. Briggs believed that the church was a divinely instituted entity and that all denominations held the same basic concepts, so universality should be an easy goal to attain. His ordination loss, though, after his trial, according to Smith, is the thing that really got under his skin, caused him to have a bit of a downward path after his, aside from all of the other things that he does. So, thank y'all for listening.